You are listening to GeekFest Rants on the IC Robots Radio Network.
You have located GeekFest Rants, the entertainment podcast for genre geeks like you.
Shall we play a game?
Covering the world of vintage and current film and television since 2010.
Game over, man! Game over!
Featuring in-depth conversations on sci-fi, horror, fantasy, comics, toys, and conventions.
So say we all! So say we all!
And now sit back, relax, and enjoy today's show.
Getting to the bottom of these signals is of utmost importance to the Federation.
You never forget your first jump.
Spock had a vision. He called it the Red Angel and changed him.
I will find him.
Nothing is ever truly gone. Termination begets creation. It's why life is eternal.
Captain Giorgio.
We joined Section 31.
Fancy.
You're gonna have to start trusting me. I'm sure you need to get back to your snake pit.
I would like to believe that somewhere within the unknown, there is purpose. And we are being guided toward it.
Someone or something is going to end all sentient life in the galaxy.
Need you to hold her together.
We will figure it out. It is what we do.
Hi everybody, and welcome once again to GeekFest Rants. My name is Carlos Perone, and today I'm joined by Steve Folks. We are going to tackle Star Trek Discovery Season 2. You know how big fans we are of Discovery, and we finally got around to going through the major plot points of this particular season, all the new things, what things we were really excited about, and what things didn't exactly work for us. But we hit it all. We're going to talk about all of it from beginning to end. So let's get started with Star Trek Discovery Season 2.
Television is not the truth. Television is an amusement park. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We're in the boredom-killing business.
All right, I'm here once again with Steve. Hi, Steve. How are you?
Hey, Carlos. Hey, everyone.
As promised, you know this was coming. We're big fans of Star Trek Discovery, and we kind of tippy-toed a little bit around it before. I forget, maybe we were talking about the short treks or something, and we kept promising we are going to talk about this show. We are going to talk about, and here we are. We are going to go through season 2. Obviously we can't go episode by episode because that will probably take about 4 hours or 5 hours. There's podcasts dedicated to just every episode being reviewed out there, and we cannot be that thorough. It's just too much information. But overall, why don't we first give a general summary of what we thought the season covered in terms of obviously being different than the first season. If you remember the first season, I remember it wasn't so much a cliffhanger because it was like something happened at the end that all of a sudden teased the fact that, holy crap, there's the Enterprise, this modern version of the Enterprise. Obviously, you're not going to see the little model and, all that stuff from the original show. Even though, believe it or not, if you think about it, it's kind of hard to watch a Star Trek episode that's being aired right now, an original episode that is not the modified one that I forget when the Sci-Fi Channel had it, that they did this whole thing where they replaced the original special effects with newer special effects, I guess to get people a little more interested in the show and that sort of thing. And I think now that's pretty much the only one I've been able to see anytime I watch, a repeat of Star Trek in the local channels that I watch them here.
Yeah, even on Amazon Prime, if you go back and watch the TOS episodes, it's the new updated.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it's the new updated version.
So they pulled the Lucas in terms of if you're going to refer to it or examine it in any shape or form, you have to go to this special edition. I don't know what they call it, this new and improved. I don't care. I don't mind. I'm fine. No, whichever
the changes they made from what I saw weren't as obvious as they were in the special editions of Star Wars. It's not in your face.
It doesn't change the story. It doesn't make you hate or like anybody more. It's their aesthetic changes. There's special effects, background paintings, ships, all that kind of stuff, which, again, it doesn't bother me. But this is about season 2 of Discovery. And last season, as we talked about it before, it was a very, I don't know if you want to call it a divisive season, because with Star Trek, any new product labeled Star Trek, you're going to have this problem that, not my Star Trek. You're going to run into that. That's almost a guarantee now with just about anything you deal with. You're going to run into that, part of the fandom that they're just not into it. And rather than walk away from it, they like to just sit there and just tell you how awful it is. It's like, why are you wasting your time? Go do something else. But we kind of muddled through it last year. We were enjoying it while some people were hating it. And this year, it's a little strange, I think, the feel of the show. Even though I still liked it, I felt like they were trying to kind of please some other people at the same time. So they were kind of trying to ride the line more this time than last time, because last time they weren't really riding the line. They did what they wanted to do, and then they got the reaction afterwards. They didn't have that feedback situation that you have when you get into a season. Did you kind of feel that that's the overall feel of the season, that it was different in tone?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, from the first season, when they had all that behind the scenes drama, they were switching, from showrunners and everything. So you can definitely feel that there was something going on in the first season. But now the second season, it was definitely, you can definitely feel, even right from the start, it was, you can tell the reaction from the audience. It was definitely felt in the writers' room. You can tell it was that they tried to take it into a sort of a less darker, more lighthearted, more fun, type of approach to it.
Yeah. Now the story itself, like, again, first season was very Klingon heavy, the beginning of the Klingon Federation War, and then halfway through it we got a little bit into the Mirror universe. So those were like the two main places that we were visiting last season. This season, it all centers around what they call the Red Angel, this creature, this appearance, this being that seems to show up in different places at different times and create havoc in different parts of the universe in different times. And the entire season basically centered around that, trying to figure out what this thing is that's creating this stuff. And along the way, we get a whole bunch of great new characters, which is part of the formula of the show. We kind of knew this already. We knew that Burnham, even though she's the star of the show, she's never the captain of the ship. So there seems to be a formula, if you will, now, where you'll have these incoming and outgoing characters every season. Maybe not for the entire season, but at least for part of the season. And this time around, instead of dealing with Lorca, who was the general, captain that we were dealing with, we kind of got used to it, after a while.
Yeah.
This year we have a guest captain, if you will, that's bringing us into this mission, which is Captain Pike. And why don't you give us a little background, and, for those who have never heard of Star Trek before, who is Captain Pike?
Well, when you say they bring in a guest captain, that's, they really, pulled out all the stops for this one, because it is quite a name. So previously in the original series of Star Trek, there was, obviously Captain Kirk, who was captain of the Enterprise. But before that, Kirk inherits, quote unquote, inherits the Enterprise from a previous captain, Captain Pike. And so he was never, up to this point, he was never really front and center in any of the shows, or even the Kelvin movies, where with Chris Pine as Kirk, he was already
in the wheelchair. At first he wasn't. You're right. Yeah.
No, he was. This was, I guess, in that universe, that event never happened.
He's recruiting Kirk.
He pretty much recruits Kirk into the Starfleet. So that was like the most we got of Pike, and that was technically not the original Pike, so to speak. So,
we are going to open that can of worms in a few minutes.
so in this season where they wanted to bring in another captain, they figured we'll bring in the original captain of the Enterprise, Captain Pike. And so he would be, now if you're familiar with the original series shows Captain Pike, he's in like this futuristic sort of like wheelchair / washing machine looking device. It's like all enclosed, his whole body's all enclosed except his head, and I think like his neck. And you can see his face is like sort of like, not mutilated, but sort of like burned,
scarred.
Yeah. So he doesn't have a great fate, he's alive. He's cognizant. He can communicate, so to speak. But definitely not. He's definitely seen better days. So we see him here, and this is all one timeline, as they've told us. This is all the prime timeline, so to speak. So this is before that event happens in the 1960s Star Trek. This is before this is when he's in his prime. Basically, he's captain of the Enterprise. He has his number. He's his right hand officer, number 1. And so we meet him. This is where it picks up from the end of season 1, where the Discovery just gets out of the Member Universe there, and they pick up a distress call from the Enterprise, who's being led by Captain Pike, and it drops us right into the beginning of season 2.
But let me quickly jump in here with something that you might want to chime in on. Obviously, that episode of that we did where we met Captain Pike in the wheelchair, they played a lot of clips of. It's supposed to be a memory of what happened a long time ago, where there is a Captain Pike in charge of the Enterprise, and he's on an adventure, and all that stuff was based on the different pilots, I think, that they had for Star Trek. The initial pilot and then a secondary pilot, where Shatner was not the lead star. They had a different actor doing it, which ties into this a lot in terms of the fact that this Captain Pike, later in this particular story, will be completely tied to the events that led to what happened to him. In many, many ways. Yeah,
and this is probably my favorite portion of the season. We're probably jumping around a bit, but the episode where the episode is If Memory Serves. I think I should have gotten the episode list, but I think the episode's called If Memory Serves, in which he sort of confronts basically himself in the future. And he has to make this choice, whether he takes the high road and accepts this fate for himself, or if he does something that probably most of us would do and try and has the ability to sort of change his fate. And it's such a great scene. Like the episode opens up with this sort of flashback and sort of callback to the original series.
Actual scenes, actual clips. And it didn't look cheesy. It looked like it works. It's like it's not like when your typical 1980s flashback episode where it's like a recap of the greatest hits of the season. No, this was so well done. The music was also so well done. Everything worked, and it was called, If Memory Serves. You're right. It was that one.
Yep.
And that you do get to the point where not only is he interacting with these beings they are the Telosians, I think. Yep. But he does see that flashback or flash forward, if you will, memory or vision of him in the wheelchair, and then he also sees what leads to that the some kind of reactor core breach or something that he has to stay in the specific room to get things done. Like a kind of like a Spock Star Trek 2 kind of moment where he has to sacrifice not necessarily his life but his body to save, I guess, the rest of the crew or some people around there. And then he's in that chair, and that kind of wakes you up out of that scene, and you're like, oh my God. And then I'm watching it, and I have my wife and my daughter over here, and I'm like, do you guys understand what this means? And they're looking at me like, what the hell's wrong with him? You don't understand what this means. This is so important.
only us, only we type of folk can get that sort of excitement out of this. I love it.
And it was like, oh, never mind. I'll just keep watching. But that like you said, that's like further along. I think that was episode 8 out of 14. So it's a little over halfway through the season. So what we're finding is that as a result of this, you would expect Spock to be in the Enterprise, but part of the story is that Spock is off his rocker. He's off. He's out there somewhere. They don't know where he is. They're accusing him of murder because he was in an insane asylum or something. And obviously, Pike doesn't believe what they're accusing Spock of doing. So part of the mission is not only are they looking for this Red Angel, but they're also looking for Spock at the same time. And it takes quite a while for us to finally catch up to Spock, as opposed to him being there from the beginning like Pike.
Yeah. And I knew they were going to do that too. I knew they were going to sort of build up Spock to be, sort of. I knew we weren't going to get him right from the beginning of the season. I sort of figured that they would want to, keep him, keep us watching, keep us, keep us Star Trek nerds, really, invested in these finally, in the big reveal, showing Spock, which was actually sort of a not a complaint of mine, but I felt like this season was like after the reaction to season 1, which a lot of people didn't enjoy because there was such a lack of focus on the actual bridge crew, and there was actually like a lot of people felt like the focus was so much on Michael Burnham that the rest of the crew never got their sort of due. So I think they tried to change that with season 2, and they did. I think they did a decent job. But then the fact that they had to then bring, and as much as I love Pike in this, he's one of my favorite parts of the season, they bring Pike and Spock in. So that, again, sort of then overshadows the rest of the crew again, because we have these two big names, like, oh man, I can't wait to see, Spock.
Yeah. And the guy that plays Pike, he's just incredible. I remember seeing him. See, I remember him from Hell on Wheels. That's the first time I saw him. It was a Western show. And then he was in the, what was that Marvel show? The Inhumans.
Oh, was he? Really?
He was in the Inhumans, which didn't last too long either, one season. Yeah. And in Hell on Wheels, he had this huge fuzzy beard, so he looked very westerny. And then for Inhumans, he took off the beard, but that particular character was mute. Or he wouldn't talk. That's part of his thing. He can't talk, because if he talks, he will destroy people with his power of his voice or something. So they kept him quiet the whole season. It's like, wow, he's a very nice looking character, but he's not speaking. It's like, oh, great. And now you have him here, which is like great. They cleaned him up. They took his beard. Now he can talk, and he can, and he's, one of the things I read is that he's such a perfect, kind of like an analog for 60s and 50s leading men. He's the square jaw, chin, you could see like a little star in his eye when he talks, that kind of, like he smiles, and they should insert like a little lens flare, J.J. Abrams, bing, that kind of thing. But it works. And for this show, it kind of balances everything, because on one hand, you have the very realistic, diverse crew, and then you have this guy who is so, I don't know, he's so cliche that he's another different kind of person, because he's such a cliche.
Yeah, right. And it's a perfect dichotomy to the rest of the series, because the series is very dark, gritty. And that's why I was afraid that they were going to make Pike into like, they're going to change his character and make him sort of like, it has to fit into this darker, gritty universe.
He's like a Batman type of character.
Yeah, right. Where he's going to be like ultra flawed, and he's going to have, all these, but they actually kept his character, and they made him into sort of like this, I hate to say Boy Scout, but this very like all American,
Well, yeah, he's like Captain America meets James T. Kirk.
Yeah, right. And I was just waiting for the moment when they're gonna give him some sort of drawback, and he's gonna have some sort of personality clash or something. But no, like he kept making these great decisions. Like I was like, man, he guy's a great captain, which is completely at odds with the previous captain, Lorca. But right. I was really glad to see him, get a lot of, he got a decent amount of time in the series, in this season too, where it wasn't like, they present the plot and then they just hand it off to, Burnham or someone else. So he was pretty much in focus for most of the episodes. So I was happy to see that. He
definitely had a role to play, and I think he played it very well. As a matter of fact, I've been reading, a lot of people are buzzing about where are we going to get a spin-off? With him and his number one, she was pretty good too. And obviously Spock by the end, again with the beard, he's got the beard for half the episodes, and then by the end he takes off the beard, and we're getting so close to, he's wearing the blue shirt and all that stuff, and you're like, oh my god.
well, it's funny, like once I saw him without the beard, then I was like, I don't know, actually I think he actually reminds me of a better Spock with the beard, actually.
I kept thinking, because I remember like in Star Trek the motion picture, it's like, shouldn't he have like slightly blue under his eyes, because they I remember with his makeup, they gave him like a little bit of a bluish tint to it, and it's like, aren't you supposed to be getting close to motion picture? But it's not. This isn't motion picture Spock. This is Star Trek Spock. So they gotta. But again, obviously the uniforms look close to what we're used to. The colors.
Uniforms look great. Yeah, that's another thing too.
They went to more towards the retro colors. The retro style.
Yeah, and I never had. And again, this is a problem. People. I swear, Star Trek fans will fight over anything, but people also had a problem with the Discovery uniforms. Where they're like, those look so they look like military uniforms to me. I don't see the big deal, but I will admit, I actually enjoy the newer classic uniforms technically.
Right,
in
and you can kind of see.
I really like them. They were.
You can kind of see in the progression of the show, as far as this particular timeline goes, that this is the new styles. And I think they even mentioned something about like, oh, these are the new uniforms or something.
Yeah, the first thing out the gate, they were like, these are the new uniforms.
Yeah, so
like, wink, wink.
You can kind of tell that if we were to continue in this timeline, little by little, Federation ships will have those new uniforms, which is okay. That makes sense. I'm fine with that. I'm cool with that.
Yep, and a lot of people were saying, "Oh, see, they're retconning. They're just pandering to the fans now." Like, no, I mean, yeah, I guess you could say that, but that's how. If you look at history of military, we're not wearing the same uniforms we are from the 1920s. It's uniforms change.
Yeah, well, you can't even get into that argument.
Yeah.
One other thing that was introduced into this season was the fact that it was very Klingon. What's the opposite of heavy? Light. It was very Klingon light, and we do get it initially in the first couple of episodes. I think the fact, it's already spoken in the beginning. The fact that Tyler is already, because some time has passed already, and Tyler now is with the Klingons. But there is a problem because of the child that was born. I think, was he born during the last season or?
No, because
between seasons.
Revealed, yeah, I guess it's technically between seasons because it's revealed that he exists basically.
Right. So they have to kind of fake his death, because the child's death, to be able to put him into hiding, and they also have to. Do they pretend they killed Tyler also, or they kill? They pretend that Tyler's dead and the baby is dead, so that the mother now is in charge of the Klingon Empire, and she's in charge, and to hell with that guy. But in reality, she knows he's alive. The baby's been put away somewhere safe, and Tyler is working with like the secret. What is it, Section 31?
Yeah, Section 31.
Section 31. So he's now this shady, half Klingon, half human individual. But the baddie this time around ends up being some kind of I don't know how you could explain, like a computerized, all-knowing, data-collecting virus or something? Is that how would you describe it?
I would describe it as Google. Basically, what you described, it sounds like you're describing Google. Some all-knowing. No, but it's called it's called Control, where it's basically, it was created by Section 31 as sort of like a Skynet type sort of scenario where they could have like some sort of like all NSA like ability to sort of monitor everything, because Section 31 is like this clandestine spy organization. And this is never really explained, but somehow it becomes sentient of itself and it wants to get more sentience.
Now, is this the same Section 31 that appears later in all other incarnations of Star Trek?
Yeah, it's the same, much to some fans' dismay. Yeah, it's the same Section 31. But because this is a prequel, this is before Section 31 had to sort of go underground, because if you watch the other later series, like Deep Space Nine, Section 31 is very, like, no one really knows about them. They're very in the shadows, very murky. Yeah. They operate, completely outside of this Federation. And in this, they're much more upfront. Like, this would be on the level of like the CIA working with the FBI or something. The organizations are known. People know about them. They're just, what they do is secret. But their existence is known.
Now, the powers of this I don't know what you want to call it, a creature, this program, whatever you want to call it. It's to some point, I remember, where we were getting close to the end of the series, and in the manner that this virus would infect not only a program, but other people so directly that they could just kind of touch and inject them with the virus. It was, people were saying it was very Borg-like. And could they be kind of laying the groundwork for the proto-Borg, if you will? Which the only thing I kept remembering was at some point, and I think it might have been in, maybe it was Next Generation, and Guinan talking to Picard about, oh, the Borg, we knew them 1,000 years ago or something like that. So it's like, could this be a proto? Well, now, granted, if you're dealing with time travel, all the rules go out the window.
Yeah,
but
much.
Do you think this could be a Borg thing? Because some people are, no, get out of here, get out, no Borg, no Borg. But some people are saying, yes, this is a Borg nod. What do you think?
Yeah, and that was instantly where my mind went. Once I started seeing like the scenes of
the nanobots and all that.
Yeah, being like sort of quote unquote assimilated.
Yeah.
You know, once I saw that, I was like, oh, okay. Like they had like the green like laser things. Like, I was like, okay, I think pretty sure they're gonna introduce the Borg. But like you said, you know, I thought that the Borg would have already existed. In fact, in the show Enterprise, there's an episode with the Borg in it. So I figured, I was like, okay, if it's not the creation of the Borg, maybe it's like how they got more advanced or something, or how they, you know, maybe they were a very rudimentary, you know, sentient life, you know, but then somehow this happens and they are able to, you know, improve themselves, upgrade, so to speak. But yeah, I don't know. It's never been. I don't think they've said, you know, yes or no to it. But it is very interesting. Like the similarities are very, you know.
Right. So as we get further and further along in the story, as they're finding all these connections and all these appearances, obviously we get to meet all these different worlds and blah blah blah. We get to a point where they realize that, or they're thinking that this Red Angel is Burnham from a different timeline or from a different time period. And it ends up not being her, but her mother, which then opens up this whole thing about, wait a minute, this has something to do with what happened to her parents, which was, I believe in the beginning of the story of season 1, the theory or the tale was that her parents were killed by Klingons. Was that what it was? Or by
Klingons, yeah.
Right, and the Klingons. But there was also something about Vulcans that were rebelling against Vulcans, and they were like a terrorist Vulcan organization too, or something like that. What was that about?
The full details are I would have to go back and rewatch. Yeah, I know her parents. Technically, like, they were involved in Section 31 or something. Where the fact that at the end, Leland's talking to I think it's Giorgio. And she's telling him what happened and saying that it was this Section 31 sort of cover up, so they had to like not frame the Klingons, but the Klingons were there for a reason of Section 31.
They were conducting experiments or something, and they got caught. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, we do find out that, guess what? I guess the mother was able to survive by jumping back and forth in time through, I guess, some of these experiments that they were doing. And that's what created this whole issue. Now, the thing is that part of the story involves her fighting this control entity in different periods in time. That's why it seems to be hopping from place to place. Which, okay, you're going to throw the time travel monkey wrench into things. Okay, let's see how that works. Because obviously, anytime you mess with time travel, you know, your story could go in so many different directions. So yeah, if you're dealing with time travel, it's always a little iffy because you never know which direction people are going to take it in. And theoretically, in the first season, the Mirror Mirror universe, would you consider that a multiverse environment? Or is the Mirror Mirror universe something different that doesn't necessarily become a multiverse environment?
From how I take it, I think it is more of a multiverse because it's not time travel at all, because the two exist, you know, next to each other. So
right, time-wise, it's the same time.
Time-wise, it's the same thing. But I do believe that, you know, if you were to go into the mirror universe, you know, that is technically another universe. Really, it's.
But let me ask you a question. If you go back in the Mirror Mirror universe and in our timeline, the Star Trek timeline, do you get to a point where they're exactly the same and they branched off depending on some event that happened, whether it's important or not important, or are they always different?
No, I think it's not the fact that they branched off, or if they did, it was so far back that it was sort of like, I guess, like sort of the beginning, because they're always going, no matter what point you go to, they're always going to be like literally the mirror opposite of yourself is going to be there. So it's not the fact that it's, it branched off like in sort of some sort of like Back to the Future type thing. It's just the fact that it's opposite.
You're saying it's different than the Kelvin timeline, because the Kelvin timeline started based on an event that was triggered by Spock and Nero.
Yeah.
That branched off, and now you got JJ.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that forked off. That's, I guess, technically like a tangent universe, I guess. This is the fact that it's literally the opposite of whatever happens in the Prime universe. It's so confusing. I don't know.
Yeah, okay, so that has been, so this does exist at this point, or at least it's acknowledged that it exists. So are there any other specific moments that are important that you think, I'll tell you one, another good new character, I think her last name was Reno, and she was that,
Reno.
She was like that technician that they find really early on the mission, and then later on she's there, and she's, again, a very good, very human sounding, down to earth, snippy. You could say she's a little bit of a Scotty, in terms of how direct she is, and like overly direct, and she also is good with the Doctor, because she's always like taking him down a few pegs and that kind of stuff. So that was another good new character that they threw in the mix.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I like the fact that it was sort of random, right? I mean, they found her, she was a lone survivor, and they just brought her on board, and she became part of the crew, which I always like the idea of not having some, because a lot of times TV shows get so like scripted with new people. Like they'll say, okay, here's this new person, and they'll join us for X amount of episodes. I like the fact that it was just sort of like picked up on the fly, really.
Yeah, and I hope they keep her.
I loved her dialogue. Yeah, I know. Same here.
Yeah, whoever's writing her dialogue is great.
Yeah, it was very spot on. It was very like snarky and not malicious or anything, but she sort of put other people in their places. When they were, when they came at her or anything. I really.
She sounds to me. She sounds like an angry fan. Like she knows the lingo, but she's just upset about it. She's just like, but yeah, definitely good. And obviously Spock, the guy that's playing Spock, he, at first it was a little, I had to warm up to him a little bit, but then it was like, he's getting it. He's not only is he getting it, but he's owning it. After a certain point, way before he takes off the beard, his interactions with Burnham and how they kind of come to terms with each other, because she's trying to reach out to him and he's just giving her the cold shoulder, and eventually they kind of get through each other to be able to kind of reconnect and learn about their upbringing and what happened, with all those earlier events, which was really, really good.
Yeah. We should probably bring that up too. Yeah, part of the subplot was the fact that Burnham and Spock had like this, because they're technically siblings. Adopted siblings, obviously. So what earlier in the past, they had this sort of break between them emotionally, and Burnham sort of said some pretty nasty things to Spock. It sort of caused him to retreat even more so, and they never really recovered from that. And so it sort of created this rift between them, which never was fully healed. And so now currently, when Burnham was trying to find Spock, because she heard that he was on the verge of mental breakdown, apparently he didn't want anything to do with her, and he was still very emotionally closed off for all those years in between, which to me was great. It was a great idea, but leading up to all that, because we had like half a season to find out what was the cause of the rift between them, and I guess this is more my fault. I was building this up to be like this. Oh man, what did she do?
Right.
This big event that was supposed to separate these two brother and sisters, and then we see it happen on screen. It's like, oh, she sort of just insulted him, which that's probably if you're young, you can take insults to heart, definitely. But it just seems like this is like 15 years of animosity between each other. And a big.
Let me ask you a question, because I don't remember exactly if this was revealed in this season or the previous season, that Saavik had to pick one of the two kids to be in the academy, and he picked Spock. And that is something that's always in the back of her mind. Was that the first season?
Yeah, that was the first. That was the first season. Yeah, that was when you first get to see Saavik.
Now, as we get close to the end of this season, there was an episode that kind of bothered me a little bit, which was the second to last episode, because it was obvious to me that episode was kind of setting up this emotional, we're about to do something big, so we want to just tell everyone how much we love everyone. And I get that. I understand that. And I don't know if there was a better way of doing it. How would you have done it? Because obviously we're such experts at this that you and I could write this, and
we should be writing. We should be in the writers'
send the money directly to our channel here. We can, we'll write all these episodes. But there was something about that episode that was like, okay, I get it. We love each other. We're gonna die. This is the episode where just like every other episode, we could die any episode. But it felt like such an anticlimactic setup. Now, don't get me wrong, I like the last episode, but for some reason, I don't know, I just felt like the pacing was a little off or wasted to try to get me to believe, because I already do believe that these characters like each other, but to show the audience that for an entire episode felt like a bit of a waste of an episode.
This is where it touches upon my grievances with the season. So we went from season 1 where we don't get any real backstory on the characters. We don't get really any emotional connection between them. And then in this season, we see the writers are trying to do their best to try to turn that around, but they sort of shoved it all into one episode, and that's what I think we got. Like we got the episode where we see the backstory of Aria, the woman who's encased in sort of like the robotic suit before she dies.
Yeah, I was so confused at first. I'm like, who is this? Wait a minute, did I miss an episode? Did I miss a character? And then you're like, oh, okay, I get it now.
I get it. They're building up her backstory, and then but then she's killed later on the episodes. Spoilers.
Now let me ask you a question. Don't you think that would have worked a little better if she was one of the not the second, but the tertiary characters, either of the other two women? If it was her, it would have felt a little more real.
Yeah.
Rather than create a red shirt, basically, so you can dispose of it and make you feel bad.
Yeah.
They could have taken advantage of that.
Yeah, I know, yeah. And I mean, she wasn't in season 1, but she's just so relegated to the back, we hardly noticed her. So then they shove us some backstory, into the front episode, so I'll feel bad for her, and then they kill her. So it's still manipulative. But to your point previously, yeah, there seems to be like this episode where they wanted to cram as much, feeling and emotion as possible, but it just came off as, I appreciate what they were doing, but they should have spread it out over the whole season instead of shoving it all into one episode. Because then it felt very, very uneven, because then the next episode, like you were saying, was just all action. It was just this big space battle, which should have been,
oh my God,
should have been great. I liked the way it looked. I liked the way, the sound and the, CGI was beautiful, but it just felt like it was just a little too much. Like the first episode, was just, the second to last episode was all emotion, all character building, and then the second one was just all action, all explosions. So it felt very uneven to me, and even for me, going through the whole storyline of the whole control taking over, it felt like it was just sort of been done already. So I wasn't sort of invested into it as much as I wanted to be. I'm not sure how you felt about the whole control storyline as a whole.
It really didn't bother me. I wasn't that. I mean, I like the first season more as far as bad guys go, because I like the Klingons. I like seeing the Klingons being Klingons.
Yeah.
This was, again, a typical, if you want to call it typical, a Borgy kind of, crazy machine, crazy technology-based bad guy, which, okay, we've done it now. Let's move on to something else. I get it. Fine. That's okay with me. But yes, that last episode with the battles, again, and I mentioned this, and you mentioned this on the first season, I feel like I'm watching a film every time I see this show when it comes to special effects.
Yeah.
I was, normally I sit on my couch and I start to lean back, and I lean back a little more, and I start to angle, and my angle goes to the side, and my head hits the back of the couch, and God forbid anything hits my head, I start to get sleepy. For this show, I have to sit up, put my feet on the ground, and sit upright, because I feel like I'm watching a movie, and I don't want to, I feel like guilty if I fall asleep, because it is just such an experience to watch these battle scenes there. I mean, again, they're like, again, for people that don't like J.J. Abrams, they're J.J. Abrams movie quality scenes. I mean, I don't, and I know some people complain that they're a little too much. They're a little, I don't like Transformers action. It's just too much. I get dizzy. I don't know what I'm looking at. I feel like I'm underwater upside down because the movement is so crazy. Here, they do go crazy with the movement. Don't get me wrong, but it feels good in the way that they do it. The space battles, all of that flying through space kind of stuff, even if it's in, those armored suits they were using or those smaller fighters. I cannot complain at all about the special effects.
One of the greatest space scenes in this second season to me was, the first season had that first opening battle of the Battle of the Binary Stars, which was great. That sort of set the standard for what we were going to expect. But for this season, I loved the shot of that Klingon cleave ship where it just decloaks, and then it decloaks right in front of the Section 31 ship and just tears through it. It was stuff like that. Like it's inventive, it's different, and it just looks gorgeous. A part of me was really hoping that they would sort of wrap all these episodes up and put it on into maybe a one night feature in a movie theater or something, just so we can see it in IMAX on a big screen. Because some of the scenes and some of the battles would just fit perfectly on an IMAX screen.
Now, on the other hand, when it comes to to criticize a little bit of the writing also during that last episode, the fact that in this last battle, and I understand it's I don't know if you want to call it cliche, but the good guys are winning, and oh no, the good guys are losing now, and oh my God, they're gonna all die, and then the Klingons show up. Okay, the Klingons show up. Yeah, Klingons show up, everybody. Okay, we're evening it out a little bit. But wait, then you have these other guys show up, and then the queen of whatever shows up, and it's like, okay, maybe you did it just a little too much of too many random other people. Granted, okay, because the queen, we saw her during the short treks, and Saru's, which I never remember Saru's planet having a space force or a space whatever the hell you want to call it. That felt a little like too much of a convenience.
No, you're 100% right, and I view the term as Deus Ex Machina, where they have like this, and
don't get me wrong, I'm screaming, yeah, go, but then I think about it, I'm like, yeah, that was a little too convenient.
Yeah, see, I think less is more sometimes, and like the Klingons showing up, that's great. I love that. It's perfect. The thing where they bring in Saru's people, that felt a little too much, only because if you follow the storyline, which happened maybe in timeline wise, that was maybe 3 days ago from when we saw them last.
Oh,
they had just to give you guys the background is the Kelpians are like this prey species where they're kept under strict lock and key basically by another race called the Baul, and the Baul prevent them from any technological advancement. They have to give sacrifices to the Baul. They're basically their masters. So you're telling me in 4 days, I'll say maybe a week, I'll give them that. Maybe it
was there some kind of time travel element that we missed?
Yeah, really, because you're telling me in a few days though, they took the Baul ships, learned how to fly them, and then came to the aid and were now expert pilots. I don't. There has to either we're missing something, or
because I remember with the Klingons when Pike goes to visit the Klingon cave of whatever remembrance, I don't know what the hell you call it, and he meets this he meets this guru who ends up being the child of Tyler. But because time works different, he's an older man.
Oh yeah, but
we're like, wait a minute, this is different here.
Yeah.
Did that have anything to do with this final battle maybe taking place time-wise later? No, because the queen of what the hell, she was just the same old queen.
Yeah.
So I don't understand that.
That time jump was just localized to that monastery. I don't think even on the planet that time travels differently. It's just literally just localized to that monastery where time.
Yeah, that didn't have anything to do with that. The other complaint that I heard that I kind of agree with also was that right before that battle, Burnham gets a visit from her parents. And it seems super convenient that they're so far away from everything that her parents can just get on a bus and arrive there and, hey, good luck, we're all counting on you, goodbye. It's like that conversation should have been done over a hologram or something.
Yeah,
but it just, I mean, I understand the emotional connection of being physically close to her parents it looks better on camera, but I think, again, story-wise, I think it was a little not thought out too well.
Yeah, because then you can go on the argument of, well, why didn't Sarek and Amanda just bring help from the Vulcans with them? Like, if you're coming in, if you're knowingly going, like, if you're knowingly going to meet your daughter who might die in a battle, you might want to say, hey, my friends the Vulcans, you might want to send some ships to help these guys out. My daughter's with them. So. It
reminds me of Leslie Nielsen in Airplane right before they are about to crash land. He's like, I just want to know that we're all behind you. Goodbye. we're all counting on you. All right, bye-bye. It's like, what was that? Oh man. So anyway, let's go to the end, because let's just say the good guy wins, more or less. The good guys always win, but they have to sacrifice something in order to win. And what they have to sacrifice is not only Burnham's mom has to jump back into time travel to kind of trap this control into following her or whatever. And the Discovery also has to kind of go with her too in that direction.
Yep.
And they were saying it's supposed to be something like 900 and God knows how many years.
950.
Which I'm also into the future, and I'm also thinking, wait a minute, wasn't there a short Trek episode about the ship being 1,000 years in the future, abandoned somewhere, which was a really cool episode? I was like, oh, maybe that's got something to do with that. But I didn't realize this. We talked about this. I didn't realize that they were actually going forward in time. I figured they were just kind of like jumping into whatever, and they were going to be able to jump back out of whatever. But no, this kind of sets up a really unusual, plan, if you will, from the writers, that the next season is going to take place in the future. And it kind of worries me a little bit, because it's like, if there is a layer in this season of trying to course correct what people were criticizing about the first season, which I absolutely had no problem with. I wish they would do more of what they did in the first season. Does that mean they're trying to get the show away from the timeline to just get people to shut up about how, well, the ship doesn't look the same, and the shirt is different, and his hair is different, and blah, 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 blah. You know, are they moving away from the regular timeline indefinitely? Or do you think this is just another season of something different, and then eventually they'll have to return? Even though, by the end of this episode, you can kind of see how they're tying up all the loose ends of talking to the Federation and saying, okay, this incident, we're not going to talk about it. Spock is not going to say a word. Pike is not going to, nobody's going to say a word. Nothing happened. I don't have a sister. Hey, Star Trek is about to start. Everybody be quiet. Do you get that feeling?
100%. I mean, they were to the point where it was like beating you over the head. And like after I was done with the episode, actually, I recalled the scene from Indiana Jones at the end of it when they're putting away the Ark and the big. I can imagine them pushing the Discovery into like a big crate. Like never talking about it again.
Because they're heading to they're heading to the future, not to an alternate universe.
Yeah, exactly.
They're heading to the future.
Yep. So
and have we seen any? How far have we gone in Star Trek lore as far as TV shows go? Like, for example, like Next Generation. How far has Next Generation gone? As opposed to, 200-300 years or something? Or?
I think so, but I think the furthest one out was Voyager. Because when Voyager happens, I think Voyager was the farthest out, and also time-wise and space-wise, because they get trapped out.
So we are going a place we've never seen.
No, this is way past.
I remember. I think it was Voyager or something where they show you the Enterprise J. Which is like this future, but again, that's a
over the top ship. Yeah,
I don't even know what year that was supposed to be, where the temporal wars and blah blah blah, or I don't know if that was DS9. I don't even remember anymore. But I guess they are going into a place we've never seen before. I just honestly hope they don't stay there, because I hope the writers are not just doing it just to get people to stop complaining.
I hate to break it to you, but I think we're staying there, and I think they are doing it just to appease because. And on one hand, I agree with you. I think that. I just want to see some, the stuff that we know from Star Trek, but the fact that there were so many people just crying about how it breaks canon, and the fact that if we can just shut those guys up and not hear them complain or anything, fine, I'll take it. And the only good thing about it is the fact that we'll get to see some new, really creative new storylines, because there's going to be literally they can do anything they want to.
Of course. But it's also nice when the show is grounded on something we know and recognize.
Yeah.
And again, you could have this discussion, this could be The Last Jedi all over again for all we know.
Yeah.
But I hate to break it to you, just like you just broke it to me, but I'm going to break it back to you. I have a feeling that the people that dislike the show because it doesn't make me feel like when I was 6, they're not going to like the show anyway, no matter where the show goes. They're still going to complain about anything why is Burnham, this show is just SJW and this is the women in the ship. They're still going to hate that.
Yeah.
It's like, why give them an inch if they're going to just crap all over it?
You're right. And the fact that, it seemed like even in this season, I did have my problems with this season, but this season to me was very good. Very, 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 very good.
Yeah.
But there were still people that we were still bringing up. It's like they were trying to go out of their way to find things to dislike, which boggles my mind. Like, do you wake up and find things that you don't like about life? Like, I don't know how you go through life like that.
That takes a lot of work.
Yeah,
it's a lot of work
to find things that you don't like about something and focus on it.
But you know what's a great motivator to do that? Money.
Yeah.
Money is such a great motivator because if somebody pays you or if you make money doing that, you'll do it. You'll get out of bed. You'll set the alarm just to hate something.
Yeah,
it's worth it. It's worth it.
Just to wrap up a few points I had on the season itself. I was actually pretty more broken up than I thought it would be, was to see the Admiral die. Admiral Cornwell. I really liked it because she had a much bigger role this season, and she had a few nice moments with Culber. Culber was, that's another thing we probably didn't even touch on, where Culber was pretty much brought back to life, basically. And he he has to kind of come to terms with the fact that he doesn't feel like he's himself anymore. And I'll tell you what the thing I'm glad they didn't do. Because this is a controversial character, because he is a gay character with the Doctor, I'm glad they didn't go the route of he's reborn now, so he's no longer gay. I'm glad they didn't do that because I'm like, what? But no, it's the fact that he's a different person. He's just not into him at that moment because he's still kind of figuring it out. But I'm glad that by the end, he kind of came back to his old self, more or less, and kind of reconnected with him. So I'm glad that happened because I'm like, oh no, don't do that because please. Oh, that was a huge mistake. I think I would have had to been the angry fan at that. I'm glad he kept his character, and I suspected that they wanted to write some drama in, to give him sort of like this, post. Mortem stress, really. So, that was fine.
And it worked. I think it worked. And I don't know if originally they were planning on getting rid of that character. And then as sometimes you hear people react really well to a character, so they have to figure out a way of writing him back in or keeping him. I don't know if that's what happened.
Oh, no,
I don't know if this was intended all along.
Oh yeah, no, it was because they were planning to kill him, but in fact, I do sometimes I tweet to some of the actors and the Star Trek writers room and everything, and so now his name is escaping me. The actor who plays Culber responded to one of my tweets saying, saying that don't worry, I'm coming back. They found it's really great story beat for me to come back into. So.
And I like the fact that he also looks different. He looks older. His hair is grayer.
Yeah.
So it's like him being reborn also physically changed them too. So that's like, he looks a little different. It's like something's off.
Yeah.
And Stamets, he's not. I mean, he's still a jerk a lot of times, but I like the fact that the Doctor can kind of put him in his place. He can kind of calm him down and like stop being a jerk. Be nice, and he'll kind of get nice again, and then he'll be a jerk again. Tilly, I really didn't see much growth in her this season. She's still kind of flippy, whoopy, but I guess that's her character now, and I don't know. Every now and then they do give her something important to do, and her connection with the Queen, that was obviously part of the, we need everybody's help to beat the bad guy, so that was her connection. So that was all right.
Yeah, that was okay. I felt like they overdid Tilly sometimes. I felt like because in the first season, like she got a lot of attention, like people really liked her.
She did.
But I think they sort of swung the opposite way. But I think they gave her a little too much, comedy. Where because I wanted to take her more seriously. Because in the beginning of the season, we learned that she was going through the whole academy training for a captaincy training role. Which is, I guess, they have a track for certain students or certain cadets. which is I thought that was great. That was cool. Some sort of like sub storyline like that. But then they kept bringing her in, and all of her lines were more of like comedy based. Like she became more of a joke, really. And I mean, there were certain scenes, like you said, with the Queen, which I thought was a great idea, bringing her back. They seemed to play Tilly more for comedy this time, and I was like, I don't know. I wanted to take her more seriously.
Yeah, and then Saru, again, through the short treks, I think we got more out of him, and then when he returns to the planet, we get a little more out of him. But I really didn't get any standout moments from him this time around. In terms of during the first season, there was this friction between him and Burnham, and how they kind of have to come to terms with each other. That does, they can't do that again. They can't repeat that. It'd be repetitive if you have them again. I don't trust you. You don't trust me. That kind of thing. Okay, it's been done already. So I don't know what else they can do with him. And I know maybe this is part of the formula of the show, is that certain characters, which is, I don't know if you can call it a trend or just the way modern writing works, successful writing, the Game of Thrones formula of, yes, certain characters are going to die, and they want you to attach yourselves to a character because they will kill that character off at some point. So I don't know, maybe that's what's in the future for some of these characters, that they do want us to kind of cycle in and out through characters. I don't know. But the background characters, I really didn't get too much new information on them. There's the A, the B, the C, and then you have the non-speaking characters, but even the C-level characters, the other people in the bridge that get maybe one line per episode. Yeah, I guess at some point they got to throw them a bone and give them something.
Yeah, I was hoping so. And we did get some, like, to me, the season started out like they were going to sort of go very heavy into the characters, but then it sort of mid-season it sort of shifted back to being revolving around Burnham's story and everything, which was fine, but it just seemed like it seemed like they were like going to address some of the concerns from the first season where it wasn't a lot of the character development. But then toward the end of the second season, it just went right back to the same sort of, focus heavy on Burnham and focus heavy on one central story. So, which I didn't love. I would have liked it to be a bit more of a share to, all the characters, in general. But we did get a decent amount. We got some of Detmer, the girl with the sort of like bionicle eye sort of thing.
Yeah. We
got some of her. We got a lot of Saru, which was good. Like you said, some Tilly. So it was spread around to most of the crew, some of the bridge crew rather. So
yeah. So I'm looking forward to the third season. Obviously, what a shock! If the first season was an A, this season I think is something like a B+. I would say I don't think it's as good overall, not as good, but there were such a good elements in it. Like for example, again, all the Pike stuff was A-level material. The bad guys, I can take them or leave them. I was more impressed with the Klingons of the first season.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like I said, I don't know where we're going to go in the third season. I hope they do the short treks again to kind of tease us into maybe what could be happening.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. I think they said they're going to start them over the summer. From what I hear.
Good.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm comparing the two. I think this season had like higher highs. To me, if that makes any sense, it had like the moments that it did do right,
more peaks and valleys.
Yeah, exactly. From the parts that it did right, it really knocked them out of the park. Like the whole Pike, if memory serves, episode was just phenomenal. The first season was good, but it was more consistently like okay, it was more consistently good. It wasn't really like I didn't have any like wow moments where I was like, oh, this is the best thing ever. I got to rewatch this. So yeah. There's another great season, and I'm looking forward to season 3. I think we're gonna be there for a while. Though I don't think it's gonna be a mirror thing where we're gonna be in and out. I think we're gonna be there for a bit.
And if they're gonna be messing around with time travel, I wouldn't mind not spending a lot of time, but maybe making a few pit stops along the way to other Star Trek time frames that we've seen before. Do a flyby by the Enterprise D or something, you don't have to get into conversations with people, but all of a sudden it's like, wait, are we here? No, wait a minute, this looks different. What's that ship? Oh no, let's get out of here. That doesn't look like our that kind of stuff.
They are starting the Picard series, so there is opportunity for them to like sort of work in tandem with other series, because there's a Section 31 series coming out. So they have,
and there's an animated series too.
Yeah. So they have the opportunity to sort of work now that they're all on the same timetable here, they can easily, reach over to one group and say, okay, we want to sort of, maybe put in a story idea from the Picard show and use it later on in the Discovery.
It's possible, yeah. Well, overall, like I said, I'm very happy with it. I can't wait them to start sending us information on what's coming up next, and when are they going to start shooting, and when are we going to see a trailer, and when are these short treks coming, and all that stuff. So I'm pretty sure we're continuing with this show.
Oh yeah, definitely. And with the amount of money and everything they put into for the production value.
It's like I said, it's a little movie. But again, thank you, Steve, for joining me today. This has been great, and we will return as soon as we have more information.
Thanks, Carlos. It was a pleasure. The Talking Trek is something that we probably should do more of to rival the amount of Star Wars we talk about.
No kidding. You got it. Thanks, Steve.
Yep. Take care, everyone.
All right, I hope everybody enjoyed today's show. Once again, I want to thank Steve for joining me and going over Star Trek Discovery Season 2. This was a very good second season for this particular version of the franchise. As you've heard, there were things we liked. There were certain things we didn't like too much. But we are just as eager as we were the first time to see what happens next. The show promises to take us to a different place that we haven't been to before. And I can't wait to see what direction it goes and to see what other directions the Star Trek franchise goes towards, because there seems to be a sort of a resurgence, I think, of Star Trek interest. And I would bet that a lot of it has to do with this particular show's success. Standout characters this season, obviously Pike was a big plus, for the show, and obviously Spock. So who knows, maybe in the future we'll see some more classic characters visit the show. So on behalf of everybody here, thanks for listening, and we'll see you here soon at GeekFest Rants. Bye-bye, everybody.
Every moment is a test, and everywhere I turn, there's fear.
I'm responsible for 203 lives. I'm tired of deciding which mission is too risky and which isn't, and who lives.
But who dies? Insufficient facts always invite danger, Captain.
I was raised to believe that service was my purpose.
I see an outsider, a child molded by wisdom and human compassion.
We speak about the objective hardness of the Vulcan heart. Yet how little room there seems to be in yours.
I'm responsible for forging my own path. We all are.
If you would like to subscribe to our show, send us messages, or see video links to some of the topics we talked about today, please visit our homepage at geekfestrants.com or our YouTube channel, Facebook page, or iTunes at GeekFest Rants.
I don't know what we're yelling about!
GeekFest Rants is produced by Carlos Perón, copyright 2019.
This broadcast is part of the IC Robots Radio Network. Visit icrobots.com for this and many other nerd/nostalgia related podcasts. You won't be sorry for long.